Namaste. Today's topic is atomic structure. It's a very interesting topic. I hope you enjoy listening to this lecture as much as I enjoy presenting it to you. This is Shree from Eduland Foundation. So let's get started. We all know that anything that has mass is a matter. For example, a bucket has mass, it's called a matter. A book has a mass, it's called matter. For those of you who do not know what mass is, mass means weight. So matter is made up of very tiny particles called as atom. The word atom is derived from the Greek word atmos, which means indivisible. Everything that has mass is called matter. Matter is made up of very tiny particles called as atoms. Atom is derived from the Greek word atomos. There were great philosophers like Plato and Greek philosopher like Democritus who believed that matter had atoms which could be broken, but they believed that this atom could not be broken beyond a certain point. In fact, it was Democritus who coined the word atom. There were many philosophers who were doing research on this atom. Later, it was John Dalton who proposed his atomic theory. According to John Dalton, he said that atom was the smallest particle of an matter. An atom could not be indivisible further. This theory was very well accepted and was there for a very long time till one day scientists observed that two objects attracted each other. They took a glass rod, and when the glass rod was rubbed against the silk cloth, it attracted a balloon. This brought curiosity among philosophers as to identify what was there in an atom. Because, according to John Dalton, atom was the indivisible particle of the matter. To understand this, let me give you an example. Suppose I give you an empty box and tell you that this box is empty. But when you take it in your hand and shake the box, if you hear a sound within, then you will be curious to know what is inside the box. Same thing happened to the philosophers then. When they found that two objects were attracting each other, they wanted to know what was that inside the atom that caused this attraction. So this gave topic to many scientists to research on the atom further. It was J.J. Thomson who wanted to know what was inside the atom. So he conducted an experiment which is very famously known as discharge tube experiment. Let's look at how this experiment was conducted. J.J. Thomson took a glass tube which was called as the discharge tube. He placed two electrodes inside the tube. Electrodes are nothing but metal rods. Electrodes are ones which conduct electricity. He connected the negative plate to the negative terminal of the battery and connected the positive plate to the positive terminal of the battery. There was also a vacuum pump to release the air because it was believed that air is a very good conductor of electricity. Now, he used a very high voltage of 10,000 volts and behind his positive metal rod, which he called it as anode, he coated it with zinc sulfate. Zinc sulfate was a metal which glows when the electric charge particles pass through it. Now, let's look at this structure once again. He took a glass rod which was called as a discharge tube. He placed two metal rods cathode and anode inside the tube. He connected the cathode to the negative terminal of the battery and connected the anode to the positive terminal of the battery. He also had a vacuum pump to extract and remove excess of air from the glass tube. Why did he use the air? Because he knew that air was a good conductor of electricity. He also coated zinc sulfate behind the anode because zinc sulfate is a material which glows when electric charge particles flow through it. He used a very high voltage for his experiment. He used a voltage of 10,000 volts for this experiment. Initially, he used air at 1 atmospheric pressure and conducted his experiment and found no results. J.J. Thomson did not give up. Now he reduced the air pressure inside the glass tube to 0.1 and then he conducted his experiment. He expected that when he passed the high volt through the discharge tube, the tube would start to glow just like our tubes, just like our tubes or lights which glow when we switch on the light. But in this experiment also, nothing happened. Then he reduced the air pressure further and passed a very high voltage. To his surprise, he found that the discharge tube did not glow but became completely dark. But suddenly he noticed that his zinc sulfate was glowing. This proved that the negative charge particles from cathode moved towards the positive charge particle and were glowing on the zinc sulfate. This experiment proved J.J. Thomson that atom was not empty. It had a subatomic particle within it called as the electrons. So this concluded that atom was not empty, but there was a subatomic particle inside the atom which brought the charge between two particles, and these were called as the electrons. In our next lecture, we'll look at discovery of protons.